All right, Jossie, thank you, sir.
They have always focused on these three suspects.
Indeed,
Sure.
I know they have. Thank you, Jossie. Joining us in New York is John Q. Kelly, the lawyer for Natalie's parents. John, I've always found it very, curious that Deepak and Satish, that their homes did not seem to be extensively investigated or searched. Any thoughts about it?
Well, I think the reason they went to the Vandersloot resident first is in some of the statements there was an indication that they had clearly stopped by there and Natalie had been at that premises. There was no indication they'd ever been by Kalpo's, but certainly it should be searched, if not that she was present there, that there might be other incriminating evidence, forensic evidence, clothing might have been buried there somewhere, maybe even urine shoes. So they certainly should execute a search warrant, or should have, a year and a half, 2 years ago on that residence also, as well as forensically check the car.
Are you satisfied that Deepak and Satish, I'll take them first, have answered every question?
They've answered every question. Their answers have varied greatly depending on the time they've been questioned. I think the issue of fabrication and the inconsistencies of their statements is one of the reasons they're still the primary suspects, along with Uran.
How about, I was just going to ask you now about Uran Vandersloot.
Sure.
Do you remain suspicious for Uran Vandersloot?
Well, you have to, Greta. These three individuals, by their own admissions, were the last three with her when she was alive. She was very intoxicated at that time, by all accounts, and they all clearly fabricated stories as to what happened to her in their last contact with her afterwards. There's no reason not to be very suspicious of them right now and then be the main suspects.
I guess, John, I remain suspicious of them because they're the last ones to see them. I remain highly suspicious of Deepak and Satish, more so than Uran. I've spent a lot of time talking to Uran. And I remain suspicious of the police investigation that failed to investigate all the people who were on the beach that night. And you've been to that beach. You know how dark it is. You know people hang out on that beach, and it's not exactly a place even you want to be there alone yourself. So I guess I'm so profoundly disappointed with the entire investigation.
Well, I think you're right, Greta. There was also a large concert on the beach that night. There's a dock there and a lot of boats that pull in right there. So certainly that has to be looked at also. This isn't a witch hunt, and you don't want to see anything excluded at this point. The other thing is, it's my understanding there's a team of 24 detectives working on this case, and I hope that they're not just going to retread the same ground that should have been looked at earlier, meaning, the car, the houses, the area by the fisherman's hut, that they'll do what you've been suggesting. They get out there, they interview a lot more people, anybody who could have possibly seen or heard anything or might have, secondhand evidence, hearsay, might have picked something up in any way. All these people with the number of hands on deck now should be out there interviewing everybody on the island if possible.
Not that this is necessarily, a telltale sign, but do you know if Satish, Deepak, and Uran are willing to talk to police further if questioned, or whether they have to be brought in under some sort of, duress, like a subpoena, or be picked up or something? Are they willing to talk?
No. It's my understanding. I know Uran clearly stated on your show during your interview he would not cooperate any further with law enforcement, and I know the Kalpos, if not through them, by their attorneys, they are not going to cooperate any further. Also, they'd have to be, given a reason, whether it be subpoena or be put under oath by the local judge down there or something to answer questions. At this time, they are not cooperating, which is rather suggestive and suspicious also.
Well, I don't mean to be hung up on I think the police sometimes get hung up on a theory, and I don't mean to get hung up on a theory likewise in a different direction, but we heard that there was a man on the beach who was related to someone who was in the police department, high up involved in this investigation,
Sure.
who himself had a criminal record and hung out on the beach and sold drugs even there that night that Natalie disappeared. Did you hear that?
Of course I did. I've heard that in other people that, were, if not present on the beach that specific time that night, that couldn't be nailed down, that there are a lot of people who, on a regular basis, spent time, those hours of the night, in that vicinity that certainly should be questioned. And there's no reason with the number of people, supposedly working on this case, that they can't get out there and question anybody who, regardless of how remote or what a long shot it might be, that might have some information on this case.
I guess, I mean, when the police did investigate some of the people, they actually wrote it down on police forms. You find them on witness statements.
Sure.
Did you? I can't remember the man's name. I know his nickname. But do you remember ever seeing this particular man's name in any police report, as though the police had even bothered to talk to this particular person? And he was a curious person, to put it politely.
Curious. You're trying so hard to get that name out there, Greg. I'm like Jossie. I'm not going to be able to help you with that, with the specific name. We all know who we're talking about. But no, I've not seen any police reports or statements or anywhere it's been memorialized that they have interviewed this individual, the son of a prominent or stepson of a prominent police official down there.
Do you use the corruption word, or is that too strong a word as to why that person, who would be an obvious person to interview, wasn't even interviewed, or at least we didn't see him in any police forms?
Well, I wouldn't use corruption because I'm not certain he hasn't been interviewed.
How about incompetence?
I'm not sure he hasn't been interviewed. I'm certainly not satisfied. This family, Beth and Dave, certainly aren't satisfied that this individual and a number of other individuals also who might have relevant evidence have not been, interrogated or questioned at length, and it's been memorialized in reports, so we know that it's done.
You know, John, I think Dave and Beth and also Robin and Jug have, been enormously patient, and it's absolutely disturbing to me how little this country has given them information or shown them just basic courtesies, just answering questions.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were given a basic heads up the other day, the day before the search warrant was executed, but in a lot of ways, when you're just
from the Americans.
From the Americans.
Not from the Arubans, but from the Americans.
It was, to be fair, it was an American liaison who had gotten the information from the Arubans, but it's very general information, and you get raised expectations, and then you see them walking away from the premises doing what should have been done 2 years ago. As far as we know, it wasn't a fertile search. We haven't heard anything. I'm sure we would if there was something earth-shattering that was uncovered that day, and we haven't heard that. So you get a little bit of information, it raises expectations, it thoroughly deflates them. I've spoken to both of them today, and they're upset, and once again I try to keep their expectations low. They try to keep them low, but when you've been missing your daughter for over 2 years and can't get any information, it's hard not to hope.
It's hard not to hope, and they've continued to go through enormous pain.
Horrible.
And they have been a lot nicer than probably, more gracious publicly than a lot of the rest of us might be. Anyway, John, thank you.
Sure.